and welcome to another edition of TechKnow, the series designed to get business leaders moving to the drumbeat of new and emerging technologies. In the last episode, we focused on the basics of how AI works. This time, we're diving into the art of the possible and how businesses can really make the most of AI with real-world application. Now, AI has been the subject of a major hype cycle over the past decade, and arguably has not yet lived up to its huge promise. This is largely down to the fact that for the most part, businesses haven't yet figured out how to fully tap into its value. My guest, Mike Hobday, is here to help. He has a wealth of experience in strategizing and updating business models for the 21st century, including over a decade at IBM and spells at Atos, Prudential, Barclays, and PwC. He's seen it all. And he's currently spearheading integrated AI and automation at AntWorks. We caught up to dive headfirst into the details of AI deployment. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Great. So we like to jump right in. Time is short. Let's map out for us. What are the broad possibilities for business when it comes to AI?
The thing about artificial intelligence, it really falls into two camps. One is about using AI systems, machine learning, machine vision, to be able to look at images, and that, by images that could also be 150-page contracts, and to be able to extract 100, 130 data points from it more accurately than humans can, because humans unfortunately get bored. Everyone knows that 90% of data out there is unstructured, right? Even if you're investing in the smart side of AI, if you can't order that data, it's of no value. So you can use AI to look for patterns across multiple data sets and spot things that humans can't do, or humans could do if they had the time and the energy to take all of the data in. The two things to remember is, one, using AI for extraction and ordering data, and then making it available to your data scientists so that they can use the smart side of AI to start to look at big data sets and find value in it for you.
Cool. So, but there's value to be extracted in both stages, right?
Oh, huge. And my view, where we are, particularly now here, coming out hopefully of the pandemic, is what's been a big problem for businesses is operational resilience. If you think about some of the outsourced providers, they've really struggled because they've got large numbers of workers who are reading emails, reading documents for their clients wherever in around the world, and actually sending those people home to areas where perhaps the Wi-Fi is really weak is a really big problem. To start to use this AI for data ingestion and ordering as being incredibly important as we start to reorganize work so that we can all work from home wherever in the world we live.
So there's so much value to be extracted in whichever phase that you might be in. What's stopping businesses from taking advantage of this? Because, as we know, hardly anyone has figured it out properly yet.
Yeah, because most people are in experimental stage. So you see these islands of AI, and then at best in most organizations you see robotic process automation, perhaps with some optical character recognition, OCR, which is like 30, 40-year-old technology to read structured forms. So you've got a fairly weak base for the data ingestion. It's not really working there. And the second element is your data scientists haven't got the quality of data. If you think about most organizations, data runs through their organization like a lazy river. And that's because the river of data is a mix of analog and digital. It's just data pouring in, and where humans are reading stuff, there's loads of errors. So what happens is downstream, you have all of these, currents where, there are buildings and people are correcting the data, reconciling the data. So you've got, in all your processes, so much waste. People doing work, if the data was right at the ingestion point, actually the water would course through your organization really quickly, and have far less human intervention.
That's a great analogy. So on behalf of all of the busy and non-technical business leaders out there, what are some common pitfalls or maybe some red flags that we need to look out for when we're just starting to figure out our strategy and how AI may help us achieve our strategic goals.
So I'd like to do a red flag and a green flag, if that's okay.
Yes, love it.
So the red flag is don't embalm your 20th century processes.
Okay.
So by that I mean the processes really up until the present day, where you've got lots of people manipulating and reconciling data, lots of handoffs between departments. That is a 20th century environment where processes are organized around people, not around the data. You need to use AI to order the data, to extract the data in the right way. And the green flag, though, is the opportunities. If you look at organizations, maybe 80% of the data that sits in an organization rests in documents that are in document management systems.
Okay.
They just reside there. When you have an application and you approve it, it's great. What happens is, maybe it's a contract attached to it. What happens is summary data is put in your systems of record. The contract or the application forms, rich with customer information, for example, will then be stored in cases of complaint or the regulator wants to do a check. Now, if you can use machines to read that and structure all that data, imagine what you might find. So if you're a retail bank in the UK, and I was talking to one recently, and what they said was, if we could ingest all the valuable information that sits inside a mortgage, right? So there's an application form, there's taking security over a property, there's all of the data you get from the lawyers and the searches of the property, right? Clearly, the energy rating and the postcodes is of little or no value to a bank.
Right.
But actually, there's somebody out there who will pay for that data.
Absolutely.
And you've just got to apply that mindset to this equation. So one of the pieces of work that I'm working on today is whether we could read the 150, 200-page documents that sit, insurance slips and insurance policies that might have been written over the last 2 or 3 years, and grabbing that data and using that to feed the insurance brokers when they go back to clients for perhaps business they lost in the past. But also, like the bank example, finding real value in the huge amounts of data, which, frankly, must be in 150 pages, because otherwise it wouldn't be worth writing in the first place.
I love this concept of actually liberating value by structuring data.
Yeah. And
how exciting.
It is. And the final thing is, the great thing about combining AI with automation is you'll get lower costs because you haven't got the reconciliation of the people downstream. Customers will get a better result because it'll be a lot faster. There'll be less errors, so the customer's going to be happier. The level of risk is lower. You'll be able to support operational resilience. And if you find the patterns in the data, you'll make more money.
Fantastic segue. Our next series is going to be about intelligent automation. So
excellent.
One last question for you, and that's what is your recommendation for our virtual shelf?
There's a YouTube video of Nelson Hall and John Hancock Manulife talking about how we're using AI for data extraction from insurance documents, which includes both completely unstructured data, but handwriting as well.
Okay.
And we're getting 92% accuracy out of it, which I'm sure is better than your average human.
Absolutely, and that would have implications across every industry.
It doesn't matter what industry it is.
Fantastic. And so lastly, what's up for you? What can you tell our viewers about what's coming up for you and maybe AntWorks?
Oh yeah, well, we've got some really big news coming up. We've got the launch of our cognitive machine reading solution Plus, which has a completely new UI and actually means that business people can organize the AI to read their documents, right? So that's going to be really good. And we've also got an email agent that will collect emails, read emails, understand sentiment and intent, and fire off responses. And then our solution will take the PDF file out and read that too. Very good. Well, thanks so much, Mike, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, it's great. Thank you for inviting me. So there were some great insights there and colorful examples from Mike to turn the abstract concepts of AI into something a bit more practical. It's certainly reassuring to know that the first steps toward AI deployment don't have to be complicated. It's just a matter of getting your data in order. As always, please subscribe to our channel if you like what you see. Next up on TechKnow, we're exploring how AI will impact the future of work and how we can ensure sustainable outcomes. See you then.